why don't I introduce you?
Well, I'll just make more room for myself to walk around.
Okay. Oh, good, another parent. Oh, great.
Oh, okay.
Welcome. Take a seat. I was just about to introduce Dr. Colin Kageyama in Campbell. Oh, here's someone else. Hey, come in. Well, thank you for coming. We're recording this session, so if anyone wants to go back and revise it, they can. Have a look at it. My name's Peter Roberts. I'm a 5th grade parent at the school. Dr. Colin Kageyama is here from Campbell to talk about vision and learning and how the two are related. When my eldest daughter was 6 months old, she sat on our lap and we showed her how to read. And by the time she came into kindergarten, she could read. By 2nd grade, she was reading Harry Potter. And then in 3rd grade, she said to us, "Why do I see double?" And we thought, wow, that's weird. So we took her to an optometrist at Costco, and they gave her glasses that were like this thick. And they said, well, maybe she needs vision therapy. And I thought, I don't even know what vision therapy is. And then our youngest daughter, when she was 6 years old, we'd put her on our lap to read, and she'd toss the book across the room. She hated reading. She's always hated reading. And finally, at 4th grade, when she said, I've got no idea what these words mean, that's when we gave her a vision test too. So both girls went through vision therapy, but you wouldn't tell, just looking at the way they read, that they both needed vision therapy. So Dr. Colin Kageyama is here to talk about the ins and outs on the various things that you need to look for with kids who might need vision therapy.
All right, thank you. Okay, so I'm not sure how we're going to start this. What is vision? What's vision? Okay, what's what you see? What's vision?
I would give the same answer, ability to see.
Okay. Anybody else?
Light coming into your eyes, being focused onto your retinas and interpreted by the brain.
Okay. Do you have anything else? So, how do you measure vision?
The distance you can see.
Distance you can see. No. How else can you measure vision?
The clarity.
Clarity. What else?
Color.
Color. Okay. What else? How else do you measure vision? What's 20/20 vision?
When you can see something about 20 feet, you can see clear. I've never been 20/20.
Okay. So,
Wanted to be, but I never have been.
so if you have 20/20 vision, does that mean you have good vision?
Yeah.
Okay. What does that mean?
I guess whatever.
You don't need corrective glasses.
Okay. Okay. So, you use your vision, or vision is a lot of things. And vision is not limited to just seeing clearly. But typically, when you do an eye examination, it's kind of, some people trying to sum it up that way. They say, oh, you got 20/20 vision. 20/20 is just one test. And so what 20/20 means is that you can see a size 20, capital letter, at a distance of 20 feet. That basically is what it means. That doesn't necessarily mean that you can see a small letter anyplace else. So just because you can see far away doesn't mean you can see close. It doesn't mean that you can use your vision to catch a baseball. Because just because you can see small things doesn't mean your depth perception is accurate, doesn't mean your hand-eye coordination is very good. It doesn't mean that you can remember what you see. It doesn't mean you can judge location. It is simply a matter of identification. Can you identify size 20 capital letter at 20 feet? And many people can identify size 20 capital letters, but they can't identify lowercase letters. Why? Because capital letters have a unique shape. But lowercase letters are the same letter, but something just rotated sometimes. So a B, a D, a P, a Q, same letter, just turned a different direction. An N and a U, same different direction. So that for lowercase letters, the orientation is critical. And for capital letters, orientation is not important. So just because you can identify a capital letter where orientation is not important doesn't mean you can identify lowercase letters where orientation is important. In an eye exam, a lot of the testing that you do is mandated by insurance. So because insurance companies cover vision examination, they'll mandate you have to do this test, this test, this test, this test. So there's a lot of tests that you have to do because of that. And because of time constraints, you can't do all the tests. And so there's certain tests that, again, if you're in taking vision insurance, you're getting paid for doing exams, you have to do a series of tests. Those tend to be the tests you do. And one thing which tends to drop out over time is the idea of testing near-point vision in children. So you test near-point vision in adults because you realize that when adults get to be 40, 50, 60 years old, that they can't see close, even if they can see far away. And so you've got to start fitting them for bifocals and things like this. So you test some things about how their eyes focus for an adult, but because of all these other tests that you have to do in order to get covered for insurance, many people don't have the time to test near-point vision in children. So a lot of times they don't. So what I'm talking about today is kind of a cases of mistaken identity, or what we call a hidden disability. And there is a group of problems that affect children in every day in virtually every classroom in the country. And some estimates are that like 1 out of 4 children have problems in these areas. And they're vision problems that do not involve problems seeing clearly at distance. So all these children who have these problems can see 20/20 or 20/15 or 20/10 at the distance, but they may have problems seeing small letters at near. They can see capital letters, but they may have trouble identifying lowercase letters because they can't pay attention to location, orientation, direction. So the confused letters that are the same letter but rotated. They may have problems writing because they have difficulty paying attention to where things are as opposed to what they are. So their identification, that's the letter A, that's the letter B, that's the letter C, that involves what they call central vision. Location involves peripheral vision. And they may have problems looking at something and paying attention to where other things are. Like paying attention to where this letter is, paying attention to where other letters in the word are, so that they write and put the letters in the same place. Pay attention to where the lines are, so that they go from the bottom of the line to the top of the line, so that you have spacing at the proper places, so that you have size, that you're on the line, that words are grouped together. And so you have these problems which are largely locational problems. And these children who have these kind of problems oftentimes do see 20/20 at distance. They go through general eye exams, they pass, they say they can see fine. And sometimes they're non-symptomatic. Sometimes they recognize something is wrong, sometimes they don't. And it all depends on where they are in how long they've been this way. It's an old problem. It's been around for a long time. And back in the 1960s, a real hotbed for awareness of this was in California. So a lot of the research on this was done in California in the 1950s, 1960s. There was a major project that was done in San Jose, they called the Cambrian Project. I think it was like 1962, someplace around there, where they studied the effects of certain kinds of vision processing problems on academics, and they studied how treating certain things could improve a person's reading skills. 1963, President Lyndon Johnson's daughter was found to have this kind of problem. And she was a girl who had struggled through school. She was flunking out of high school, and they discovered that she had that problem about the time that President Kennedy was assassinated and her father became president. And she was treated for this, and her reading became much better. And after that, President Johnson pushed through what they called Save Your Vision Week, which is a national awareness of this, where you wanted to encourage schools to get the information out that vision does affect learning, and certain aspects of vision which aren't tested for in a regular eye exam have impact on learning. There was a major development took place in the 1970s, 1976, where there was an Assembly Bill 1060, which was passed in California. And that bill mandated that every school district in California would have somebody like me on staff to work with their people who had learning-related vision problems. And I was in graduate school at the time. And I remember that there was an article out of the Journal of the American Optometric Association that said that this bill, which was passed in California, was going to be impossible. Couldn't possibly work. Because it said that they estimated that if every optometrist in the country sold their practice, stopped fitting contact lenses and glasses, and moved to California, there wouldn't be enough optometrists in the country to treat all the people, all the children in California who had this problem. So they said they thought this bill was going to be doomed because there just wasn't the manpower to do it. There were so many people, there were so many children. The other thing was that when they put the bill together, the schools had no idea how many people we would find. And the legislators who passed the bill, the governor who signed the bill, they had no idea how many people they would find. So their thinking was that they would do this, and that if they needed to have some doctor on staff, that they figured one doctor could handle 3 or 4 or 5 school districts, because he wouldn't find that many. But I remember in that article back in 1976 that they said, if you're interested in vision therapy, you should move to California right away. And I was kind of upset about that because I was in graduate school and I wouldn't graduate till 1979, so I figured I kind of missed the boat on that thing. And so when I graduated, I came down, and when I got here, I was really surprised that when I introduced myself to schools, nobody wanted to talk to me. So I finally ended up talking to one principal, and he told me what happened. And what happened was that they started this Assembly Bill 1040's program in 8 school districts, just to see what the mechanics of it were like. And they just had a couple doctors who were overseeing 3 or 4 school districts apiece. And in the first week, they got swamped. And they realized they can't do it. They just didn't, there's no way they can do it. Because they thought they would get 2 or 3, 4, they got hundreds and hundreds of people in their initial screenings. So it became obvious in the first few days that it just wasn't going to work. Didn't have the manpower, didn't have the funding. And so basically what happened was the word got out that it was impossible. You couldn't do it. There were just too many people that had these kind of problems, and that you better not find them. So all over the country, all over the state, superintendents were telling the teachers, don't find these problems because we can't pay for it and we can't fund it. So immediately what happened was that ended up drying up referrals from the schools in California. California had a lot of schools were referring people for vision therapy back then. After 1978, it just stopped. And it was really amazing that the number of offices that did vision therapy in California really dropped because they didn't get referral from schools. So maybe 3/4 of them just shut down within a few years after that. And few of them did some, but a lot of the ones that were doing small amounts ended up shutting down. So that was kind of the history of this. And so this bill, eventually the bill ended up being repealed because they didn't have the funding. And eventually all the people who were around that time all retired. And so they were replaced by teachers who weren't around when the bill was there and weren't around when they told you not to refer. And so now when you go to schools and they talk about these things, nobody knows anything about it. But they used to. In the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, California was a place where there was a tremendous awareness of the link between vision and learning. But it's not. After the bill and after these years, they don't know anymore. So that's where we are. The National PTA in 1999 declared that over 10 million children in this country have undetected vision problems that affect their ability to learn. 1995, Parents Active in Vision Education, which is a parents group, reported that 1 out of 4 children have this problem, and 7 out of 10 children in juvenile delinquency facilities have this kind of problem. And there have been projects done at places like Folsom Prison, and that find that 80 to 90% of the inmates have these kind of problems. It is a hidden disability for many reasons. And the children we're talking about don't have any problem seeing clearly at distance. They typically all see 20/20, 20/15 at distance. They never have crossed eye. They never have lazy eye. They never have an eye that wanders outwards. They tend to look normal. They frequently go get their eye examination from a doctor and they say they're fine. They usually don't complain. Parents may know something's wrong, but they often attribute it to something else. Hence, it's a case of mistaken identity. It's a hidden disability. Some people may say a child is just dumb. They may say he's slow, he's lazy, he's not motivated. Other times they may say, well, they've got an attention problem, which is true. They do have an attention problem, but it's an attention problem in that they don't pay attention to their vision. Sometimes it's mistaken for high-functioning autism, sometimes for dyslexia, nonverbal learning disability, a lot of other things. It's a huge population, and when the estimates were 10 million, that was just K through 8. But these people who have this problem suddenly don't outgrow the problem when they get to be 13. So you've got high school kids who've got the problem, you've got college kids who have the problem, you have adults who have the problem. Anyway, I had a little boy when I first started back in 1980, and his mother was an English teacher at Oak Grove High School in San Jose, and he was in 3rd grade. And he had several eye exams from several different eye doctors who all concluded he had perfect 20/20 vision. And he didn't complain of having vision problems. He was a 3rd grader, but he was a non-reader. And his mother was an English teacher, so that wasn't a very good deal. And he was verbally really, really smart. He talked like a teenager. And he was a 3rd grader. He had a verbal IQ of 130, so he was gifted. He had a visual processing speed IQ of 80, so it was like 50 points lower. And that's a huge difference. Now with this boy, I worked with him for 6 months, and his reading level jumped 5 grade levels. So he went from a non-reader to reading very well. Had a second boy who, about 6 months later, who was also a 3rd grader, but he was a year older because he was retained 1 year. And mother had taken him to many doctors. He tried medication for him. Thought he had attention deficit, thought he had dyslexia, went to all these educational programs, and nothing really seemed to work. And so they'd gone through this process for like 4 years, taking him different places. He didn't have any complaints. He didn't complain of seeing double. He didn't complain of seeing blurry. He didn't have any headaches, eye strain. He hadn't anything. He was symptom-free. He just couldn't read. And when I tested him, I found a large, wide range of problems. So we started working with him. And we started working with him, I think it was October 1981, something like that. And so after about a month and a half, the mother asked Timmy, you think this vision therapy is doing any good? And he said, yeah, it's really good. And she was kind of shocked because all these programs that she'd taken him to in the past hadn't done anything. And he never thought that any of these things that he did any good to him. So she asked him, well, what makes you think it's better? And he said, well, before when I looked at the Christmas tree, we always had 2 of them. And when I looked at you, there were 2 of you too. But when there's 1 of you, you had an extra eyeball between your 2 eyes or in your forehead. Sometimes 2 of them. So sometimes you had 4 eyes, and sometimes you had 3. And sometimes there were 2 of you, and sometimes there were 1 of you. But there were always 2 Christmas trees. Now, when I look at the Christmas tree, there's only 1 of them. I only have 1 mommy, and she only has 2 eyes. So this vision therapy is really good. And the mother says she just cried. But he didn't know it was wrong, because that had been like his whole life. He thought everybody saw like that. And not only did mom have 3 eyes sometimes, or have 4 eyes sometimes, but 2-letter words had 3 letters sometimes, and 4 letters sometimes. And sometimes a piece of something would be on top of something else. So you get the letter he, word he, and you put a T in front, it becomes a the. But he figured everybody was like that. So that's what happened. Now this kid was really bad. And essentially he'd been in school for 4 years, and he wasn't even at 1st grade level. So he was raising his reading level like 0.2 grade levels a year. And when we worked with him, he got a lot better. His rate of reading, he acquired reading skills at 6 or 7 times the speed that he was doing before. But he was so far behind. So even though he went from like 0.2 grade levels per year to 6 or 7 times that, 1.6, 1.7, he was still 3 grade levels behind. But he started reading. Basically, he got to 2nd grade level, he got to 3rd grade level, he got to 4th grade level. And finally, by middle school, he made it to grade level. He was 4 years behind, and he made up 4 years after 5 years. And in high school, he finally made the honor roll for the first time. And then he actually graduated from college, and he got a job. We didn't do anything with him except for work with him for 4 months. After that time, we didn't do anything. The rest of that, he basically did on his own. But again, he didn't know anything was wrong because he didn't have anything to go off of. That was just the way that he thought everybody was. So he didn't complain. For him, not paying attention to mom having 2 eyes, 3 eyes, or 4 eyes was a good thing, because the double vision didn't bother him. Didn't give him headaches, didn't give him eye strain, didn't give him nausea, motion sickness, anything like that. He was non-symptomatic. He felt comfortable. The bad thing was, since he wasn't paying attention to what things looked like, he wasn't paying attention to what words looked like, what print looked like, where the lines were. And so those kind of things are important. Location is important in the English language. So anyway, this is what you get. He had all kinds of diagnoses. They thought he was schizophrenic, they thought he was autistic, they thought he was learning disabled, they thought he was dyslexic, ADD, all kinds of things. He had a lot of names. It is interesting. One of the reasons why these problems aren't found is because they're small. And in most areas of healthcare, if you have a big problem, it's a bad problem. If you've got a small problem, it's minor. So if you've got a small cut on your hand, that's minor. If you've got a big cut, that's major. If you have a small bump on your hand, that's minor. If you've got a big growth on your hand, that's major. So that's kind of the way it is. And this doesn't work that way. Actually, I shouldn't have said that. I kind of blew what I was going to talk about next. I didn't really do this right. If you have an eye which goes out 50 degrees, One person has an eye that goes out 50 degrees. Another person has an eye that goes out 4 degrees. Which one's worse? 50. Sure looks bad, right? Which one's worse? You're trying to guess now. Okay. 50 degrees, it's a matter of opinion. Which one's worse is a matter of opinion. So whose opinion are we talking to? Okay. If this kid is your kid and the eye goes out 50 degrees, your opinion is that's bad. If it goes out 4 degrees, your opinion is doesn't have a problem, okay, because it looks good. Doctor says the same thing. Doctor looks at him, the eye's going way out here like this, or the eye's crossed like that. That's really bad. The eye crosses 1 or 2 degrees, that's minor, not a problem. But what happens when you ask the kid? Okay. Kid, eyes out here like this. Don't you see terrible? No, I see fine. Because what happens is they see a picture here, they see another picture way out here. It's so far away you don't even notice it. So for all intents and purposes, they're seeing single because the other picture is way out from the periphery someplace. Now what happens if you bring the picture closer? Okay. Now it's starting to bother me. So 1 or 2 degrees off bothers you because they're always mixing together. 50 degrees off doesn't bother you at all because it's off in space someplace. So it's a matter of opinion. For the mother, 50 is bad. For the doctor, 50 is bad. For the kid, 50 is okay. Doesn't bother you at all. But 1 or 2 or 3 for the kid may make a big difference. And everybody else says, it's not really there. I don't notice anything. Must be your imagination. Must be lazy. Must be trying to get out of it doing work. It's a matter of opinion. And this is what you have, is you have these problems which are relatively small. You can't see it. Doctor can't see it. Kid notices it. But kid has had it for so long that they've kind of tuned it out maybe. So they're not symptomatic. So now they can't tell you they're seeing double or blurry. They just can't read. They just can't space correctly on the line when they're writing. They can't tell the difference between letters of different directions. So that's what we that's what we have, and there's a lot of things that we have going on with this. These groups. Oh, you know what you can do? You want to fill this out? If you want information, you can maybe fill these out and
Thank you.
Okay. We'll have other handouts and things we can
I think a lot of us have to leave
Well,
this meeting, yeah.
okay. Well, I'll give you this thing. Yeah.
Just give one of us a huge chunk, we'll make sure.
Okay. Okay. That's fine. Okay. That's fine. Okay. That's okay. Yeah. Go ahead and take these. Take these. My website is on here. Yeah. Go ahead and you can just take these. Okay. Okay, I was wondering how many were going to leave. Do we have a subject here that I can use?
So I guess what would be interesting too is letting parents know what kind of things happen to their kids. Like what you look for and what you test and
Yeah. I'll do that. But what I want to do right now. Anybody here who doesn't wear glasses for distance? Okay. We'll use you. You're my subject. Get over here.
would you mind volunteering?
You're volunteered. you are volunteered. Okay. So we're gonna make you as if your eye goes out 50 degrees, and then you can see how that is, and you can tell everybody what it's like. And then we'll make it like your eyes go out 4 degrees, and you can tell everybody what it's like, and we'll just kind of go from there. Okay. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll have you put these on. So these are 50 degrees. Okay. Okay. How is that?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so what I want you to do is look at that. Hold on to that. Okay, go ahead and read it. Go ahead and read it.
So I'd have to close one eye to
No,
read this.
well, you could, but no, you can't. Keep your eyes, keep both eyes open. Read it, and
So cases of mistaken identity. There is a hidden disability which affects children every day in virtually every classroom in the country.
okay, so you can read pretty good. How do you do that?
I'm compensating and using my right eye, I know that.
Yeah, okay. So how are you reading that even though the picture is double?
I'm focusing on one of the images because I see two.
You see two. Okay. How far apart are the two?
They're quite a ways.
They're quite a ways apart. So this is if your eyes are 50 degrees apart, the two pictures aren't close together, you can compensate.
Right.
And even if you were like that from the day you were born, or if you were doing it like the day you were born, it'd be easier. You compensated just a matter of a few seconds. If you were doing this like forever, it would be easy. Okay, so now take that off. So this is a person who had an eye that drifts outwards 50 degrees. Now we'll make a person whose eye drifts outward 2 degrees, which is no problem at all. Okay, put those on. How's that? Ah. What's the matter with that? It's only 2 degrees. So what?
Actually, I will get one just
Okay. So what happens here is that if you're off by a degree, one line just goes on top of the other. Whereas if it's this much off, it's easy to disregard one or the other. Now, what happens if you had a blind eye?
I imagine I'd be better off because I only have one.
Right. So if you did that, let's just do that. Let's just make it like a blind eye. Okay. Can you see anything with that one?
No, I can't.
No. Okay. How's that?
Yeah, that's fine.
That's fine. So if you had a blind eye, or one eye that saw very, very little, it's easy to ignore that. It doesn't get in the way. It doesn't get in the way of your reading. Now, with the first time, what could you do to compensate so that you read, even though you're seeing double?
So you're ignoring one image.
What else could you do?
What else could you
You said it the first time. You said at the very beginning. What else could you do?
Close one eye.
You could close one eye. And so those are things that people do. Is there anything else you can do?
Well, for me, other than closing one eye, and my right eye is stronger than my left eye, so I usually tend to
Okay.
use your stronger eye.
Okay. What else could you do?
Don't know.
Okay.
Idea?
Okay. I need another volunteer. Okay, try. Come on. Get somebody else.
Without glasses?
What? Yeah, without glasses. Without glasses.
Well, I do wear reading glasses, if that's wearing it.
No reading glasses. Can't get somebody with reading glasses.
I do wear reading.
I know, but I can't do this. I can't do this with reading glasses.
So, I can't be a volunteer.
Right. You can't be a volunteer.
Your other option is not to read.
Well, that is another option. But there are other options, and that's what I want to try to demonstrate is what are the other options. Okay, can I hit you?
I have contacts.
That'll work. Okay, that's not an excuse. Okay. So I have to sit down here, and let's see.
Don't ask me hard questions.
I'm not going to ask a hard question. What I'm going to do though is go ahead and put those on. Okay. Now, what can you do to read?
Close one eye.
Without closing one eye, what can you do to read?
Take these off.
Can't do that. And just pretend that's the way you really are. Because that's the way you really are. So what could you do? There you go. What are you going to do? What can you do?
Oh.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. Move it.
Move it. Okay. But if you don't move it, what can you move?
Your head.
Do that. Move your head. That'll work. Okay. That'll work. Okay. And you get kids doing that. They'll turn like this, and they'll get their nose in the way and block the vision with their nose. They'll turn their head and get their brow in the way, and they'll block the vision with their brow. Okay. And so what posture are you going to take? So when you see these distorted postures, you see, they kind of learn to compensate. If I turn it this way, lean this way, I can get one eye out of the way so it doesn't bother me. So that sometimes tells you that there's something going on. What else can you do?
Aside from move my head,
Yes.
like she said, not read.
Okay, okay. So this is something you just come up with just in a matter of seconds. But if you had 3 or 4 or 5 years, you'd probably figure out a lot of other things that you could do to get by this. Okay, go ahead and take that off. So, okay, that's good.
I'm good?
Yeah, you're good. Okay. So what happens sometimes is that a person may find that by pushing it off on the side, they can read, okay? And so that means if they put the picture over on this left side, they can read. So if they've got a book like this, they've got to go this way. And if they can only read over here, then they may have to do some things to make sure that all their work is over here. You'll see people writing. They can't write over here because they can't pay attention to the right side. So they'll put the paper this way and they'll write this way. They'll write uphill. And they'll keep everything on the left side because they can keep it consistent on the left side like this. But if they start writing this way, it's going to come apart. So you'll see these uphill writing. You'll see tilting the head this way, tilting the head that way, closing one eye. You see them lying down on their arm like that. Those are all compensations that a person may should learn how to do. Get their nose in the way to eliminate the inconsistencies, the double vision, get rid of some of the extra information. And the longer a person has it, the more things they learn how to do. Now, in working with or looking for these kind of problems in kids, it is the easiest way that I know is just kind of a process of elimination. You know that children who have these kind of problems tend to have good eyesight at the distance. So you can pretty much eliminate most of your people who have glasses, who are nearsighted, who have astigmatism. Those people aren't going to tend to be the ones that are going to have these kind of vision-related reading problems. You can pretty much eliminate anybody whose eyes don't look like they're straight. So anybody has a crossed eye that wanders outwards. Anybody who has a vision loss, who has a lazy eye, you can pretty much eliminate those. Because those people use only one eye, so the other eye doesn't get in the way. The easy ones are the ones who have only been like this a short time, only been like this a matter of weeks, months, or even a year. And these ones are ones who tend to be symptomatic. It was good before, it's only been bad for a little while, they have something to compare with, they complain of blurred vision, double vision, eye strain, headaches, motion sickness when they read, but not when they don't. When they look at something small up close, whether it's writing, handheld computer games, whatever it's going to be, close work for them gives them symptoms. Those are the ones that haven't been like this for very long. Those are the ones who are easy. Ones who've been like this for a longer period of time will learn to have adaptations to get rid of their double vision. So they become non-symptomatic. So those are ones that are a little bit harder. And so those don't complain of blurred vision, double vision, eye strain, headaches. But they just have trouble doing things which involve using the two eyes. So homework takes forever for them. It's hard for them to shift from one distance to the other. Copying things off the board is difficult for them. They may skip words or skip lines when they're reading. They may miss small words in text, but be able to read big words in word lists. They may have excellent memory when they listen, but they may have poor memory when they look. And you'll find these people with postural adaptations like we showed, closing one eye, squinting, covering an eye, turning the head, riding uphill, and these kind of things. And that's kind of a medium group that's been like that for more of a moderate length of time where they've adapted. And then the third group, where it's more difficult, is ones who have these aspects of problems which affect their attention, where they don't pay attention to something. They don't pay attention to whether things are double. They don't pay attention to the big picture. They don't pay attention to the location, orientation, direction. They may only pay attention to the detail. And with those kind of people, it changes the way they think. And it may show up as differences in IQ testing, where visual areas of IQ may be low and verbal areas of IQ may be high. And those are more difficult. Those are ones that have had that for a longer period of time. So those are three groups that we see who have these kind of problems. A person's vision will tend to be good or most functional if it's just a compromise. Okay, if a person sees okay at the distance and okay at the near, and they can identify small things fairly well, and they can identify location fairly well, and so they have a skill sets that are just functional over a wide range of activities. Those kind of people tend to do pretty well. Where it becomes a problem is when a person is specialized. When they have exceptional skills one place, it's possible that they may have bad skills someplace else. So if their vision is exceptional at the distance, there is a chance that the vision may not be as good when they're close. If they're exceptional at being able to identify fine details, there's a chance that they're specialized and they may not be able to identify location. And so this is what you see sometimes, is this high specialization. And this is another reason why these kind of problems escape detection, because these kids will oftentimes, instead of just seeing 20/20 on the chart, they'll see the very bottom line on the chart. They'll see 20/10. They have incredible vision for certain things. They can see, letters on airplanes and things like this. They can see, so they say, wow, the person really can see things that I can't possibly see. So you assume that they can see that well someplace, but they can see that well every place. But actually that may be a sign that they're just specialized. That's what they're good for. They're good for viewing things far away. They're not good for viewing things up close. So again, most people are most functional if their vision is not specialized, if it works fairly well under a wide range of conditions. When a person is specialized, then there may be things that they can't do. Any questions right now? Yes?
I'm just wondering, can you talk through the process, or will you, of identifying this, what would be involved?
Yeah, I can.
Because I'm assuming that by the time they are squinting or looking sideways,
Mhm.
it's more advanced or worse. In the case where I was seeing double, where we were,
Mhm.
slightly off,
Mhm.
what's your process to go through in terms of, is it an eye exam? And then how would you correct it? Is it vision correction, or are there other
Okay.
exercises
Okay.
that one would need to do?
Glasses are effective in working with problems which are always there at a certain amount. Okay. So that if something is always out of focus, 1 unit, or always double by 1 degree, and the same amount every place, then that's some place where prescribing lenses are helpful. Lenses become less effective when a person has a problem which is variable. So sometimes the pictures are this close together, sometimes they're this far apart, sometimes they're together. Some distances it's better, some distances are worse. Those kind of conditions, lenses don't tend to work as well. If the problem is always there, in the same place, same all conditions, then lenses are more helpful. These kind of problems tend to be inconsistent. That there's a fatigue issue. Their vision may be good for a certain time, and they'll tire out. They may see things correctly period of time, certain distances, and other distances that separates. And when it separates, it may separate different amounts. So it makes it less likely, the more inconsistent their vision is as a function of time, direction, fatigue, complexity. It makes it less likely that lenses are going to take care of the problem, because lenses are a fixed response. These postural kind of adaptations that you get are things that you get in people who have been like this for a medium length of time. But when people are like this for a long time, they don't need that anymore, because they don't notice the double vision. So when your person's been like that for years and they've developed an attention problem to ignore this problem, you don't see any of that. So they become really difficult to examine, because you don't see anything wrong with them. So what we do is this. In looking at this, you can kind of start by process of elimination. And if a person is nearsighted, the person has a lot of astigmatism, if they have a crossed eye, if they have a blind eye, if they have a lazy eye, if their eyes drift outward, those are ones where you tend not to have a vision problem which is affecting their learning. And so in those times, it's unlikely that you're going to see something like that. If you don't have those kind of problems, then you're looking for problems of eye movements. How well can a person make things single? How fast can they do it? How can they do it in different directions? And therein is the problem, because when you do an eye examination and you're behind this phoropter, this back of lenses, the only place you're checking the person is straight ahead. You're not checking them to the left or the right, you're checking them straight ahead. And you ask them the question, which is better, 1 or 2? 1. Okay, well then that's into that one. So you're checking instant performance straight ahead, and usually for a child, only far away, not close. So what you've got to do is you've got to check them at near, you've got to check them to the left and the right, and you've got to check them repeatedly, because you've got to check speed, endurance, agility. How quickly can they make the movement? How many times can they make the movement? How many different directions can they move? How consistent are they under all these different conditions? And just because they can do it right the first time doesn't mean they can do it the second or third or fourth. If they have an endurance problem, that's a person who's going to read, and the first couple paragraphs they do well, and then they fall apart. If it's directional, then they're going to be missing things on one side of the page or the other. If it's agility, they can't see it on the board, write it on the paper, or see it on the board, write it on the paper. So the examination has got to be set up around that. It's got to be set around to testing how the eyes focus, how the eyes converge, get the picture single and clear, how fast, how long, and with what agility in different directions of gaze. So that's how you test it. So measuring how well they converge, how well they focus, to the left, the right, up and down, close and far, intermediate distances with repetition. And does it get worse with time? And it shouldn't, because your vision shouldn't get worse with time, because your vision shouldn't be tired. It should be an automatic response. So that's what we do. You test the mechanical kind of things. And then we do different tests in terms of interpretation. See how well what their visual memory is like. See what things they remember. Can they pay attention to the details? Do they pay attention to the big picture? You could do some reading tests and see how they read. And what you often see is that you would think that when a person reads, they should be able to read all the small words easily. And if they're going to make mistakes, they should make mistakes with bigger words. And if they can read a word list of words, and they can do that at grade level, then you'd think the text should be the same thing. What I look for people who don't follow that pattern, so that they read wordless better than they read text. And when text, they make mistakes of words that they know. So they miss kindergarten words, even though they're second, third, fourth grade. They miss words like a, it, an, he. So they miss 1, 2, 3 letter words in text when they can read big words in wordless, because they pay a lot of attention to what is it, what is it, what is it. But they don't pay attention to where is it. And small things are easier to lose. So it's easier to lose your place and skip a 1-letter word than to skip a 10-letter word. So that's a tip-off that you have. Ordinarily, you would think it would kind of be just the opposite, that people should read text better than they would read wordless, because in text, you kind of have context. You have an idea of what the next word's going to be, whereas wordless don't give you any hints about what the word's going to be. So it should be harder for you to read wordless. It should be easier to read text. But if it's harder for you to read text, and you miss the small words in text, where you get the big words right in wordless, that's an indication that you have that kind of problem. And there's a certain profile testing that we do. Other things we can do eye movement tests, where we measure how that person reads, how many fixations, how many times does that person look every 100 words. And what should happen as the person gets older is that they should go from reading, looking and sounding words out, looking at letters, looking at syllables, to looking at words as the unit, to begin to look at phrases. And so you have fewer and fewer fixations as you go further along. So a high school student should look at maybe 1, 2 words per fixation, whereas a middle schooler may look at 1 word for fixation, and whereas a 3rd grader might look at 2 fixations per word. And what should happen over time is the person should begin to start processing bigger and bigger pieces of information as you go along. And there's a certain relationship that you get. So if a person's looking at tiny, tiny pieces and looking 5 times at every word, looking at each letter on the word as they're reading, then it's going to be hard for them to be able to read fast, because it's just like taking tiny steps. You can't go any place if you're taking steps that are only 1 letter long. Whereas if you're taking steps that are 1 word long or 2 words long, then it's easier to be fluent. It's easier to read faster, and your endurance tends to be better for long term. So there's some reading related tests. There are some vision related reading tests that we do too. So part of what we do is mechanics. Part of what we do is related to attention and memory. Part of what we do is looking at of how their reading pattern is and how much information they're taking in per fixation. If we find problems like that, then there are certain signs that say this is an easy one, or this is a medium one, or hard one. Symptomatic ones tend to be easy. Ones which affect their IQ tend to be harder. Ones who have postural kind of adjustments tend to be kind of in the middle. So that kind of tells me this is one that we can fix in a very short time. This is one that takes a longer time to do. This one takes an intermediate amount of time to do. Yes.
Is this exam something that you can ask any optometrist to perform, or is it a specialized skill that you have to learn a special doctor for?
Your general exams are that's kind of the limitation of a general exam. You do it behind the phoropter, you do it straight ahead, you don't do it repeatedly. That's just the way it is. And so it's something that some people have awareness of, that those factors are important, some don't. And it is something that everybody could do, but you tend not to do that. And within time constraints and how much time you have to do an exam, and where your exams are coming from, that's just kind of the way it is. Is that a lot of exams tend to be insurance driven, because if you're getting a lot of patients who have vision insurance from a certain company. In order to get them to cover, you have to do this many procedures, and those procedures take this much time. You may not have that much more time to do it. So you don't see many people doing testing for vision outside of the phoropter. You don't tend to do that to the left and the right, above and below. You don't tend to do the same test over and over again. You don't tend to measure the speed of the test. So anybody could do it, but most people don't do it that way.
Is it the patient's responsibility to come to the doctor and say, I want you to do these particular tests?
Well, you wouldn't know what test to run. Yeah, yeah, you wouldn't know. That's the problem. You wouldn't know what test. You wouldn't know what test to run.
Like I think we all kind of go to our annual.
Right.
But it sounds like that's not good.
Well, it's good for some things. You know, I mean, that's you know, everybody who is in practice has priorities for what they look for, and so different people have different priorities. Depends on what kind of practice they had, depending on what they're looking for, and that's just kind of what it is. Is that you do what you think is important. You do what you have. What type of patient base you tend to work with, and it is something that yeah, it's just that's a hard thing to say. That's basically what it is. Is that you a lot of these tests that you do aren't that complicated to do, but if you're not in the habit of doing them, you may not know how to do them. And it could be simple as just doing that same test 10 times in a row and seeing changes in the speed and seeing changes in the accuracy. You end up with a different place. Some people do that. But if you're not doing therapy, there's really no reason for you to do that because you're not even looking for that type of problem.
So what kind of therapy do you do? What kind of exercises?
Pardon me?
For the therapy, what kind of exercises do you do then?
There are literally hundreds of different things. So there's not a set. You know, there's a lot of different things, and depending on what you're trying to work with. At a mechanical level, you're trying to make it so that the person is working more efficiently in terms of how they target their eyes, how they focus their eyes. So can they point both eyes the same place to make a single image? Can they look at different places and accurately point so that everything they look at is always single, that they never see double? Can they focus each eye the same amount so both eyes are seeing clearly all the time, every time they look at something automatically? How fast can they do that? Can they do it in different directions of gaze? Can they do it at different distances? So there's a mechanical component to that. If they don't pay attention to something being wrong, then they won't make corrections. So we have to train the attention. Can they tell what blurry is? How blurry does something have to be before they trigger a correction? Can they tell what double is? How double does have to be before they trigger an attention? All different types of ways of training that. There's some computer programs. There's some that are some stereoscopic viewing kind of things. There are some equipment that's built for that. You have lenses that you can hold up and do the same kind of thing. And so there's a lot of different exercises that you can do to try to increase a person's ability to work with the two eyes together. Once you do that, then there are things that we have to do to teach the person how to pay attention to location more. Can they tell the difference between things that are close together and far apart? Can they do things simultaneously? Can they pay attention to what this is and where this is? Can they pay attention to the letters they just wrote, and which ones they're writing now? Can they pay attention to what letters in a word are supposed to be close together, and the next word is supposed to be space? It's supposed to be on the line. It should all be the same size. So we have to practice doing things and practice multitasking, so that how are they paying attention to detail and location in different ways at different times, and how much information can they take in? Some people see the forest, some people see the leaves on the trees. Some people see the big picture, some people see the little picture. And ideally, you see both. If you don't see both, then that can be a problem. Ideally, you can see both, and you can pay more attention to one or the other when appropriate. So there's a time when you have to pay a little more attention to the details. There's times when you maybe other subjects where it pays to pay more attention to the bigger picture. And so you need to be able to identify processing styles and which of those things some people do, especially in cases where people have had this problem for a longer period of time. So that some of the things that we do are mechanical, some of the things relate to attention, And so these are ones which affect strategies that the person uses when they're reading, when they're writing, how much information they're taking in at one time. So vision is not just the ability to see something clearly, it's the ability to get in all different types of information and to do it simultaneously, to see the big picture and the small picture at the same time, or to be able to switch attention between those two, to be able to do it with speed, with accuracy, with endurance, with flexibility, and the ability to acquire knowledge out of what you're looking at. It's also a storage, because you store information with pictures. You can't store information with words, it's too slow. You can't think fast enough if you're just using words. When you talk with words, you're only talking one thing at a time. That chair is black, that chair is metal, that chair is small. You can only talk one dimension at a time. When you look at visually, you can tell multi-dimensions at the same time. You can process information much more rapidly because you're multitasking. You know, there's some estimates that say that the human brain is capable of processing between 50 to 100,000 words per minute. You can't possibly do that if you're processing words. You can't possibly do that. You're processing verbally. But a picture's worth 1,000 words. You look at something for a second, you can write hundreds of words about it. You look at something else for a second, you can write hundreds of words. You store this information, then you can translate it into words. And that's how it works, is that with your vision. Your vision is a storage and manipulation system in your brain. You picture things, you manipulate them, you can do things with it much faster than you possibly could talk, hopefully. And so vision is not just the ability to see things clearly, it's the ability to get different kinds of information. It's the ability to store information and recall it and use it for guided action. There's a lot of different things that you do. But some people are good at some things and some things aren't. And so we need to find out whether or not it is a certain area that is affecting them. What's the concerns? And is it something that vision is affecting? And if it is, what can we do to treat it? And if we can make some changes in the performance. But it just depends on, again, on what compensations that person has, what their performance is like, what the vision problems we see, how treatable those vision problems are, what the link may or may not be between the vision problem and the performance. And there's a tremendous number of people who have problems in vision that may affect them certain ways. Certain ones are more treatable than others. And that's basically what the evaluation is about. Anything else, sir? Yes?
I think you're recommending that children at least get assessed just to see if it is a problem.
I mean, if they're doing fine, if they're functioning well, then there's really no reason to do anything. And if you're trying things that are remedial, which are working, there's no reason to do anything. You know, it's only if you're trying things that aren't working or things haven't worked that maybe the model is wrong and there may be something different. So it really is a question of whether the things you tried have been working. And if they're working, well, then there's no reason to do anything any different. But if they're not working, or if then there may be something else going on. And this is something which is common, so it does affect a lot of people. And it tends to be hidden. Most people who have it don't know that they have this type of thing. And it can affect people in many different ways, because it depends on whether they've had this for a short time or intermediate time or a long period of time, and the kind of compensations that they make. And some compensations are mechanical, and some compensations are attention or inattention, and some affect the thought process. And so some affect information processing. So yeah, it is really something that is a question of how well the person is functioning, and if actions you've taken have successfully treated whatever you have. If they're working well, then there's no reason to do anything different. If they're not working well, then it may want to consider going further and looking for it. Okay. So I'm kind of done. I have a couple questionnaires here. I mean, if you fill those out, if you have I have some pamphlets. I have other information. If you want to get other information from me, you can just fill that out and get good. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Thank
welcome.
you everyone for coming. We videotaped it, so hopefully we'll be able to post it on
Okay.
some side
Did I
or
hand out all of those things, or did I?
I'm not sure. Thank you.
Okay. Oh, there's a couple more right there.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Good. Thank you.
Okay.
Are you able to